Okay, so let's continue from this conversation. So from winter, then and winter represents in the spectrum of yin yang the most yin, the most still, the most allowing, and the most almost dormant, as if things are in pause. There's a sense of like we have to wait, be patient. There's an unfolding. There's nothing to do yet, just to witness and to receive. And at this moment, then at the peak of this yin, at the darkest of the night, the coldest of winter, after the winter solstice, what happens is yang energy in yin yang, it starts to rise. And my teachers call this dichotomy, um, they call this via positiva and via negativa. So after via negativa, we go descend into yourself. Then we rise and you feel this energy begin to rise outwards from within you, outwards into the world. You might have experienced this in the later days of your cycle when you start to feel a rising energy. And this energy is associated with springtime, with sunrise, with the waxing moon, with the wood element. So after winter, what happens is all the seeds that have been descended into the ground, into the earth, after a moment when there's sufficient heat in the hemisphere, with the right conditions of moisture, of wind to scatter the seeds, of rain that descends from the clouds, the seeds start to begin to germinate in the darkness of the soil. No one sees what happens, but it's happening underneath. Just like in your menstrual cycle, no one can see what's happening in your womb, but you can feel it, and you are the one bearing witness to all this unfolding inside of you. So think of your period as a time of the seed is gestating inside of you. And when your energy begins to rise, this is when the seed and the grass, the sapling begins to burst through the surface of the soil. This is the energy of springtime, of this wood element. And wood is associated with initiation. If the time of the water element is this time to connect with your ideas, to receive answers for questions that you're not sure of, to connect with your heartfelt intention, then the wood element is the moment where you are like, yes, everything is clear. And now I feel ready to fully connect with this intention and start to have my vision. I start to play with the possibilities of what might be and how it might begin to manifest in the world. From something inside of me, it starts to come outwards into the world. So it's not quite yet something that is real or tangible that you hold in your hand, but already it's starting to show signs of life. And in the menstrual cycle, this is called the follicular phase. And in this follicular phase, this is when you experience the follicular stimulating hormones that they start to rise, and they support the release of follicles inside of your uterus that then help to support later on the release of an ovary or maybe two ovaries at the same time. Sometimes that happens, and this is why you have twins, non-identical twins. So this is the beginning of that period. So think of this time as in spring. What do we experience in spring? Sometimes there's a little unpredictability in spring, right? Maybe it's very windy, or perhaps one day it could be very sunny. What happens is the weather or the temperature might be quite erratic, so it's not so stable. And this is a true nature, a reflection of also spring energy, because we're still experimenting. Nothing is set in stone. This is a great time to be delicate with yourself. You feel the rising energy, but don't rush in yet. Slowly begin to feel your energy and allow this momentum to guide you so that you enter into the energy of summer, which is the next season. And this is a great time to connect with your ideas and start to begin to take action on them by having a vision, translating the ideas from your mind into certain possibilities out in the world. How might I take action on this idea I have in my mind, and how might it become manifest? Or in my relationship, if I want to take things to the next level with this person, or for example, this relationship feels stagnant, and I want to experiment with new possibilities for what this relationship could be. with myself, with others, with the world. This is a great time to do that. So you feel and sense into, wow, what might it be? And some things that might be holding you back at this moment is if you might feel stressed, because at this time, what happens for many people who experience a menstrual cycle is after some time of experiencing the bleed, maybe you have had a difficult period, or maybe you've had to take some rest. And very often at this time, a lot of women experience feelings of guilt, productivity guilt, because maybe you've taken a break and you're like, oh, I have so much to catch up on, or I'm so behind. Or, for example, you have some ideas and you already want to execute them, and you feel like, oh, I'm so behind and I want to rush into the next phase. So don't rush. The important thing to do here is to still experiment. If possible, play. In springtime, we don't see the flowers rushing to bloom. Nature takes its time and things unfold at the moment that is ripe. So imagine yourself as a sapling that is beginning to unfurl, and you have all these baby leaves and they are beginning to unfurl. And just like the waxing moon as well, it is slowly beginning to reflect more and more and more light. You're not rushing to come into full bloom. You're not rushing to become the full moon, which is what many of us have been conditioned to want to be, right? Not from ourselves, from our external conditioning, from the patriarchal society that values this productivity, that values this go 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 mentality, that sees the male body as the typical body that should be how productivity is. So don't rush. Take this time and, as much as possible, experiment and play. Remember, also during this time, if you start to notice that you're feeling stressed and you're indecisive, it's an experiment, it's a cycle. There is no right or wrong. Every different loop is an experience for you to spiral outwards into the world, and you spiral back into yourself. You spiral outwards into the world and then back into yourself. So it never ends. And if you're tuning in, and if you're an entrepreneur, you run your own business, you're a yoga teacher, you're a meditation teacher, you're thinking of launching a new product, or maybe a new program, and you're grappling with various different ideas and feeling slightly stressed. Oh no, which one should I do? Take it easy and go with your feeling. Experiment and play. What if you could let go of the expectation that you already succeed, that this launch is perfect? There is no perfect, just like nature is not perfect. And this cycle is never ending. Remember that none of these ideas are yours. We receive them from something greater than ourselves. And remember what I talked about earlier on about the menstrual cycle and your body being sovereign, and that you are a reflection of something much greater than yourself. Same thing with your ideas. When you receive your ideas, if you start to realize that the ideas don't really belong to you, then that takes off the pressure. Because if the launch is not as successful as you hoped, if the relationship isn't going as you expected, if, for example, you're not feeling as great or as energetic as you hoped, it's okay. It's not on you, because there are so many factors outside of your control. Just like, for example, a flower may not bloom fully with all the petals, or, for example, you can see my plant, Monstera, we call her Gwenda. Not all the leaves unfurl in the same way, and some of them look more sickly, some of them flourish, and it's just natural. So, the same thing here, remembering your ideas, every single action of yours, it is not you. You are something much greater, and you are a reflection of this thing that is greater. So don't take things personally at this time. And if things don't go as you hoped, remember, it's an experiment. Remember, play, have fun, put on the cap of the experimenter and see if you could observe, oh, what can I learn? How might I play? How might I begin to experiment? So, in the same way, at this time, you also want to experiment with your food, with your nutrition, with how you move your body. This is a great time to explore different and new ways of moving your body. If you've always been running, Try rowing. If you've always been doing vinyasa flow yoga, maybe you try some qigong. So find different ways to excite yourself and explore new possibilities that might give you a connection with a greater vision of what the full potential of what could be. And that is the true wisdom of the wood element and this follicular phase. Tammy has shared in the chat, this is all so helpful. As you're talking, I'm receiving answers about how I can support myself during these times. Again, know that these are archetypes. So they might not reflect your current cycle. They might not reflect every single experience of your cycle. And also remember, every single cycle, the previous season feeds into the next season. Just like if yesterday you didn't sleep well, chances are this morning you might not wake up in feeling the best. You might feel grumpy, you might feel sleepy or tired. This is why I started with the water element, with winter and your period. It is so important to ensure that you have allowed sufficient time for yourself to rest, to nourish, so that you can show up better for yourself in the next cycle. It is absolutely necessary. It is a human right to rest. Alexandra says, so amazing and thorough. That's good to hear. That's great. Okay, so now we've come to this wood element, which is like a time that I really love. I also really connect with this vision and the wood element of starting to see the full possibilities of what could be. So before we take action, it's very important to connect with your vision and let this excitement, let this agency fill you up. You want to avoid the stress and the strain of wanting to win and to perfect. And that's the other side of the wood element. When out of balance, you might feel angry, you might feel impatient, you might feel stressed. You might also feel guilt from the productivity guilt from resting from the previous season. But remember that rest is a human right that you deserve. So you don't need to rest to show up better. It does help you show up better, but it is your basic right.